Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to Tammy's Corner. We have a wonderful guest on for you today, and his name is Douglas Green. He has written a book. It's called The Teachings of Sherelle, Life Lessons from a Divine Knucklehead. He's in studio this morning with us, and we're really grateful to have him here. And I just want to kind of open up with something this morning. This is Enoch, a man of service, substance, diligent, professional servant to humanity. He cuts across every nook and cranny, race and culture, a man of integrity, a man you can trust at any given time, a man you can rely on if you beckon him. He'll be there. He does not care what culture or race you are. God used him to serve humanity. This is a people show that embraces everyone from suckling to adult. You can learn if you have an open mind. We will continuously empower all manner of people with great minds and great likes. This morning, as I stated, we have Douglas Green here, who is a psychotherapist. He's an author, director, writer, producer, and he has a wealth of knowledge. Just embrace him.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, good morning.
Which way am I supposed to look?
Okay, right here, right
here. Okay, I'll look at that and pretend you're right
yes,
there. You got it. Okay.
Yes. Okay, all right. Go ahead and open up with however you feel, you want to.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, as you said, I'm a psychotherapist.
Yes.
It's how we know each other, but that doesn't mean she was my client. We know each other professionally. And
fellow clinician. Yes.
And a few years ago, had a really great dog. And at some point, I started bringing the dog in to my practice, bringing her in to work on clients with me, work with clients with me. And I found that she was really the best therapist I've ever known. She would come in the room and people would change. They would relax more, they'd open up more, they'd deal with whatever was going on in a different way just because she was there in the room.
Yeah.
And I can certainly tell you stories, more specific stories about that as we get going.
That's okay.
But that was going on. And then even after she was gone, I still found either the clients who had known her would come in and talk about her in ways and open up and relate to things in ways that dealt with her.
Yes.
Or people that didn't even know her would be talking about something, and I would bring up something in regards to her, talk about how she dealt with some issue, and they would act differently. They would open up. It's like the way little children react to animals.
Right.
Like most
Relatable.
Stories for children are
Yes.
about animals. There's this deep connection. And so at some point I came up with this idea that I had learned so much from this dog, I should actually write it down.
Wow.
And so this was a dog. This was not the smartest dog ever by any means. She never learned not to walk in front of moving cars, which is not giving away the ending.
Right,
but I don't know how many heart seizures I had as she would walk in front of something.
Right.
But she was at the same time this great teacher of timeless wisdom, of basic truth that our brains are too big and get in the way of.
Yeah.
And for that, she was the best thing I've ever known. And so that's what the book is. It's about the things I learned from this dog.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
What we can do is, can you go into where people can pick up this book?
As many times as you'd like me to say. I'd be glad to do that.
Okay.
It is available on most book-selling websites. You can get it as an ebook.
Okay.
If you want the solid copy with the gorgeous glossy pictures, you can get that on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
If you're local to Los Angeles, it is currently available at 3 bookstores. They have it at Vroman's in Pasadena, Book Soup in West Hollywood, and Chevalier's Books in Larchmont, where we had a wonderful reading a couple of weeks ago, and you came.
Yes.
And so I'm
dogs
a big
were allowed.
fan of theirs. Dogs were invited.
Right.
We had dog treats and water and everything there.
Yes.
Yeah, wouldn't have done it without them.
Right. Do you have websites or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the main website for the book is cavalleriapress.com.
Okay.
That's CAVALLERIA
Yes.
press.com. And that has lots of information about the book and about her, about me. And then if you want to find us on Twitter, it's Doug Green Author. And on Facebook, you can go to theteachingsofsherelle.com.
Yes.
I'm sorry, The Teachings of Sherelle just as a page.
Okay.
So all those are, you can get a lot about this book if you want.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break and then come back more with Doug about the teachings of Sherelle, life lessons, from a divine knucklehead. Morning once again. You're at Tammy's Corner with I'm the host, Tami, and we have Douglas Green here in the studio with the teachings of Sherelle, life lessons from a divine knucklehead. And like for you to I mean this is just a great I think a great opening to find out how did you come up with the name.
The name. Yeah. So she came from the Pound. And actually, at the Pound, she had another name.
Okay. Yes.
This Pound was enormously crowded. They'd have 4 or 5 puppies to a cage,
yes.
And the cages were supposed to be one dog, but it was just very overwhelmed. And it was a big place, and because they were so crowded, the puppies stayed there like 4 days before they would get put down.
Right, euthanized.
So I was in there, and I had wanted to get a very young dog, very, very young, because my sense was by the time they're a couple months old, somebody's abused them, and then I got to deal with that the rest of their life. And
yes.
just I wanted somebody who was just so young that nothing was there. And here I'm at this pound, and there's nobody that young. They just don't have them.
Right.
So I just, okay, I'll just walk through. And at some point, it's hard to describe, but I don't remember seeing this dog, but I'm suddenly looking into her eyes.
Yes.
And I never petted her or anything, never put my hand in the cage, but my hand is in the cage, and this puppy's chewing on it, staring me in the eyes, and we just had this connection. And she was with 4 other puppies, and I looked around for the card, and there were 4 cards there. They were the other 4 dogs.
Yes.
And I called one of the aides over and said, hey, can you tell me what's the story with this one? And he went, oh yeah, that's Kelly's dog. Hey, Kelly, somebody wants to buy Knucklehead. And I said, whoa, I didn't say I wanted to buy her. But and this woman walks up and says, I haven't taken the dog, but the deal is that one has been here more than 4 days, so I stole the card so that the people who do that won't see her.
Yeah.
And so it'd be great if you'd take her. And oh man, I don't know what it's do. And jumping forward, I did. I didn't take her that day, but what happened is I then freaked out, came back and grabbed her, even though they had a bunch of 2-week-old puppies. Exactly what I've been looking for. Doesn't matter. That's the one. We're bonded.
Yes.
And so I would have thought of naming her Kelly after the woman had saved her life, but my last name's Green, and then the dog's named Kelly Green, and that would just be weird. So I refused to do that.
Right.
And Knucklehead didn't seem quite right. Yeah. Although I called her that the rest of her life. Aww. But so my sense was the name should just come up organically. I didn't want to put something onto her. So I had the puppy for a few days, and I liked the puppy. And people kept coming up with ideas, because she was clearly part husky. Give her an aristocratic Russian name or something like this. Right. And but one night I was driving out to the valley I lived actually very close to the studio.
Okay.
And but was driving out to the valley, and it was a long drive, and I was just thinking about the puppy. Just thinking about, I really like that puppy, and that she's so soft. Her fur is so soft.
Yeah.
It's like chiffon. I thought, chiffon. Now that's a name, and it's not quite right for her because her personality, she was a feisty brat, and so chiffon sounds very soft and sweet. Right. But I thought, but it's a good word in some ways. And the main thing it makes me think of, I'm a huge music fan, and it made me think of the Chiffons. And one fine day kind of describes what a puppy's thing in the pound. Right. And she probably at that point thought, he's so fine about me because he feeds me. And, a lot of things like that. I was like, that would be great. And I thought, that spirit is exactly right for her. That's exactly those songs, that kind of early 60s, the era. Girl groups, that youthful, kind of sassy, kind of, but bright, romantic. And I thought, well, maybe something else, one of those. And I just went through my Marvelettes, the Vandellas, the Shangri-Las, all these things, all these names, Supremes, and finally the Shirelles. Well, that's an interesting one. Yes. Because that word, I don't think it means anything. And I love the Shirelles. That's great songs. It's dedicated to the one I love, and Will You Love Me Tomorrow, and all these things. I just thought, okay. And I went and looked them up and found this thing that they actually made the name up themselves. That there was a group, when they first started, there was a very popular group called the Chantels, and they wanted a name like that, and their lead singer was named Shirley. So they put it together and made the Shirelles. I thought, that's perfect. It doesn't, she can define it. It'll be great, except it just has this association with wonderful music. And I'm very proud, and I start telling people about it, and everybody I tell hates it. And one person,
who shall be named nameless.
Oh, I'm not going to name anybody
Okay.
here. You'll notice that in the book, I leave almost all names out.
Right,
All
right.
girlfriends don't get named.
Right.
I don't want a lawsuit.
Right.
But one person says, it's so terrible. She's such a beautiful dog. You should give her something aristocratic. That sounds like Sherelle would be a waitress.
Right.
And someone else says, oh my God, Doug, you're such a racist. Like, what? And I say, well, because you bought her at the Pound in what they then called South Central,
right.
You gave her the name of a black singing group.
Right.
I never thought of that.
Right.
What are you talking about? But I thought, if everybody hates it, I don't want to stick the puppy with a name that's going to bring people against her.
Right.
And so I'm very frustrated. And originally I'm from Kansas City. And my mom calls me this one day and just checking in from Kansas City, and says, how are things going? How's the new puppy?
Right.
And I say, well, great, except I got this one problem. And I should clarify, this was 1994 when this is happening. Right. And so I got this one problem. Everybody hates this name, and I describe it to her, and she says, well, they're right. What do you mean? She says, well, she sounds like the name sounds just like trashy. Right. And it sounds like the sort of woman who would marry O.J. Simpson. And this is right when he hadn't been accused yet, but all this stuff was coming out about him being angry ex-husband, all this stuff. And I thought, that's exactly this dog. Right. She would love being married to some big, strong guy who gets in fights and is like, yeah, come on, I'll take you on. And it's like, that's thanks, Mom. Right. That's it. Yes. And of course, from that day forward, no one ever complained about the name. And I find this over and over with friends who get pregnant, have a baby. Right. And they'll say, what about naming the kid Tami? And someone will have 50 reasons of what's wrong with Tami. Right. And then they name the kid Tami and nobody cares. Right. They move on with their lives. Well, because you define Tami. Suddenly it's this little girl, this little bundle of joy is Tami. Yes. And it's not, well, there was a girl named Tami who was mean to me in 3rd grade, or, oh, they're always going to sing that Debbie Reynolds song at her. Like, whatever. Tami. Who cares? Right. And it's interesting. Right. And Sherelle's a better name than Doug anyway. How can anybody complain about it?
Exactly. I also, when I read your book, I love how you said that you went to the Pound and you kind of likened it to a prison. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A prison where there was no crime. There was you were arrested for existing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you explore that a little bit more?
Sure. Because it is. I mean, they're locked up, and if you think adult humans want to be out enjoing life, man, not as much as a puppy. They don't know why they're in there. Mm-hmm. And in person, you may have been falsely accused, but you know at least that. Here, this just makes no sense. Right. And it's just they're in there, and it's a tough situation. And I'm not saying I know the answer to exactly what to do, but it sure is a really tough gig for that. I have such respect for the people who work there. I will say, because I don't know that I could do it. Right. And because every time I've been at a Pound, and I've been at a number of them, I found the people who work there are so loving. Yes.
Usually volunteers.
Yes, volunteers, and either way, just they care about them. And I think this has to be so tough to do. So I am a big fan of Pounds, rescues, anything like that. If you're going to get an animal, I'm not here to get on my soapbox, but I'll say do that because they need it.
But Doug, can you empower someone that may be locked up like a prisoner in their mind?
Oh boy, that is a great question, and I'd say, well, of course, as a psychotherapist, that's exactly what we try to do. Yes. And I think there are, how can I say it? I think it's part of the human condition to get that way. Not a dog. A dog will be in that cage and not feel locked up in their mind. Right. But we have been seeking answers for eternity.
Right.
And I think art offers freedom.
Expression.
Yeah. Religion certainly is so much about that. Psychology is about that. Exercise. It's just anything. I think the question is, can you, and I'd say as a therapist, this is the hardest job we have, getting people to identify what those bars are. What is the prison there? And someone will say, oh, it's because I was treated this way, or this has
happened to me.
This has happened to me, or it's the booze is one. And I say, you need to deal with what happened to you. You need to maybe stop drinking, but the real prison is something else that you got to then work on and deal with that. I talk a lot in the book about the concepts of shame, and one of the biggest teachings, one of the biggest lessons I got from the dog, dogs don't get shame. Their brains are, my camera here. If this is a dog's brain, this is our brain. It's twice as big, and all this stuff on the outside is why we can be artists. We can have this talk show. We can write a book. There's a part that looks at ourselves, that refers to ourselves. We look in the mirror and say, "Ooh, I don't like the way that looks. I want to fix that." Dogs don't do that. I actually had a mirror. A door with a mirror in my house when I brought Sherelle home from the pound, and she would look at it, and then walk around trying to find that other dog.
Right.
And eventually she learned that was just some weird optical illusion, but she never had the self-referential thing that we do. And somebody was telling me recently there are a couple of other animals that actually do have that visually. Elephants are one, and I think monkeys, and ravens, of all things. No other bird, but ravens will look in a mirror and see something and pick at it.
Interesting.
And so it's a weird thing. But so maybe ravens have shame. I don't know.
Right.
But no other animals don't look at themselves and say there's something wrong with me. If they're mistreated, they'll say, I don't trust that. I don't trust anybody. Or I don't trust people, a number of dogs don't trust tall males. So, okay. But that's about what they think of me. It's not about themselves. And so I find that you asked about the prison we get ourselves into, we can develop a sense of there's something wrong with me, I'm bad, I'm worthless, in different ways, and that can be the hardest thing to break out of. And I work with people for years on breaking this stuff. It's so hard, and it's so gratifying when it works. I'll say it's just great.
Beautiful. Do you want to go into your poem right now?
Okay, it's funny. This is not about shame, but sure. There are a few poems in the book.
Yes.
And this is maybe the angriest. And I think most dog or cat owners can relate. Hairs in my living room, hairs up my nose, hairs in my car, hairs in my clothes, hairs in my cereal, hairs in my tub, hairs at the office, hairs at the pub. Brushful after brushful, fill a grocery bag. You don't like me brushing, don't like to hear me nag. You want to be left alone, not suffering this pain. You'd rather play some tug of war. Then would you please explain the hairs on my pillow, hairs north and south, hairs in my eyelids and stuck inside my mouth? You know they look just awful. It's strange the way they do. They always radiate such light while they're still on you.
Now, what was the inspiration for that poem?
12 straight years of hair all over the house.
Everywhere.
And you brush and brush and brush and never stop.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah. And of course now that she's gone, of course, I love when, I still have a big record collection, and and of course they have tons of static electricity. So every one of them, you pull it out, there'll be like one or two of her hairs on it. It's like, oh yeah, that's
She's
great.
still around.
Yeah,
beautiful. Okay, do you want to get into self-worth? That you have that area in your book.
Well, it really that becomes where the self-worth stuff goes, is that whole shame thing. But it applies to almost everything. The spirit of a puppy, and then eventually a dog, is so magical, is magically selfish. And it doesn't mean they aren't everything you've heard about. Loyal, they'll die for you.
Right.
They'll do anything, but it's from a selfish place of just, I want this. And if there's a predator coming and it says, I want to protect Tami, it's because I want to. And again, our heads get in our ways, and we'll say, oh no, I'm supposed to. And and it means they're living their life more fully. And so I'm not saying we should, cut out that part of our brain.
Right.
But I'm saying they're wonderful as role models for this. There's a story I love to tell about when she was very young. I'd had her for a few weeks.
Yes.
And she, weird thing about her was she had never started to bark. She had never barked. And some huskies don't, or very rarely, bark.
Right.
And since she was part husky, I thought this might be a trait she would have. And if so, it's kind of a mixed blessing, because it would certainly be more peaceful in the house, but at the same time, it's nice to have a watchdog that scares people off and all that stuff.
Right.
So, but generally she was learning things pretty quickly. She was doing well. And still one day I walk into the front room, and there she's peeing under the dining table. And I walk up and sternly say, no. And so she turns around and starts to bite my ankle. And I say, no.
Right.
And she turns around and starts licking up the urine. I say, no. And she starts to bite the leg of the table.
Right.
And I say, no. And I got some cleaning stuff there, and I'm putting it down, and she turns around and starts licking that up.
Right.
No. She bites my hand.
Right.
No.
Right.
Starts to bite the table. No.
Right.
And she turns around and looks at me with this fury in her eyes, just abject rage. And out of her comes this, and it was the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
It was so pathetic. And, picked her up off the floor and started kissing her little face. And, I'm sorry, I know this is rough. And at the time, all I knew was that was the moment I went from liking this new animal in my house to falling in love with this thing that I will be in love with forever. But what I found over time is that was really one of the more profound experiences of my life.
Yes.
As she got older, she developed a horrible bark. And it was really just awful, ugly, awful sound. And never didn't bark. Never felt the slightest restraint from it. There'd be times she'd start barking next to me, and I'd yell, shut up, or get out. It's like, that's fine, I'll go, but, but I'm going to keep barking.
Right.
And she knew her voice was lovable. And her first words, which were obscenities I can't say on your show, directed at me, were greeted with, adoration, with love, and you're wonderful, your voice is wonderful. And so that stayed with her all along. And it's pretty much impossible for a human to have that experience as much because of our self-conscious brain. We're going to, sometime when our parents are angry at us, we're going to take that as there's something wrong with us. And a dog just doesn't have that.
Right.
And so it's again just a beautiful role model of a way to live and say, well, how could I live if I didn't have those feelings?
Wow.
If I didn't have that opinion of myself?
Wow.
Because they're always wrong.
Right.
The shame is always a liar.
Exactly.
How amazing to have somebody tell you every day, like, well, here's the way to live. Now go off with your immensely superior brain and do some good.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Once you've stopped thinking you're the worst thing in the world.
Right.
Because you could actually do more good than I will just by chasing squirrels.
That brings me to acceptance.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Help someone that may be struggling with that area of acceptance.
Of acceptance of, like, problems in their life?
Just acceptance of themselves, self-identity.
Oh, boy. Well, that, again, I feel like everything you're saying is going back to that shame thing. And your identity. Who in the world, and I know the answers are probably long, but
right.
Who told you there's something wrong with your identity?
Right.
And now tell me what you think of those people who said, say, well, that kid in third grade, he called me fat. He called me stupid. He called me, my last name was Green. I got every stupid insult you can imagine. So,
you and me both. My last name, yes, right. Mississippi.
Right.
Yes.
And when you're a little kid, that hurts your feelings.
Oh,
and later
my
you
goodness.
say, what in the world's wrong with that?
Right. Yes.
But, you get all this stuff, and, the best parts of our identity are the vulnerable parts.
Yes.
Always.
Learn to love them.
And so, but that's the funny part.
Right.
It's like, if you're somebody who has a big heart, if you're somebody who loves to perform, if you're somebody who, whatever you love most is what people can attack. If you're an enormous sports fan and you just can't stop thinking about sports, somebody's going to say, that's stupid. That's a waste of time. And the fact is, well, it could be a waste of time if you don't do anything but sit around watching games all day.
Right.
But your love for it isn't the problem. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong.
Yeah. It's just to realize that. And again, if you want a good role model for that, watch a dog, because the dog will do things that we think are so stupid. Think of kind of walking in 3 circles before they lie down.
Right.
If you saw a person do that, you say, that's really weird.
Right.
But when you watch a dog do it, you say, that's cute. And then turn around and say to yourself, what does that dog think when you sit for 8 hours watching a glowing box?
Interesting.
They think you're weird. But do they judge you? Do they think you're wrong?
No.
No. All they want is, would you please stop looking at that and take me out for a walk?
Right. Love me unconditionally.
Yeah, sure. But I'm saying, but they don't mind that you look at it. It's just, but think about me every now and then.
Right. In the midst
Again,
of
the loving selfishness. That's just wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break right now.
Okay.
And come back more with Douglas Green on Tammy's Corner. Good morning, and thank you for being with us this morning on Tammy's Corner. We have our in-studio guest, we're really, really excited to have Douglas Green, who has written the book, The Teachings of Sherelle, Life Lessons from a Divine Knucklehead. We're going to get back into a little Q&A with him, and I want you just to fill in when I may throw some words at you. So, so I can.
Oh, wow. I can write a book. This is nice.
Yeah,
I didn't know I could.
Okay.
I can. Oh, this is great. Now I see when you sent this to me before, I didn't understand it would be like this. This is hilarious. I can love unconditionally. That's one thing that a dog will help you with, because we all can do it.
Yes.
We all can do it.
Yes. It takes work.
It takes more work because we're smarter and all that. But it doesn't, if you can do it, because you can say somebody, the judging part of our brain says, you can't love her because she's got these faults. And you got to just overcome that part and say, no, I can love her and see the faults.
Right.
And that has nothing, the two really have nothing to do with each other.
Right. More of a choice, right?
It is a choice.
Exactly.
It absolutely is a choice.
Yes.
And we all have had the experience, of course, of loving without a choice.
Right.
But we couldn't stop it.
Right.
Regardless of, like, I see every fault you got and I'm still crazy about you.
Right.
So if I can do that, why can't I love somebody, make a little bit more effort?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I've learned.
That, please buy this book, because it's all what I've learned. To pick one out, I will say I learned the meaning of life from her, which was, we've been searching for that for millennia.
Right.
And I realized it really is an individual thing.
Yes.
That it's not so much that there's one overall thing. I shouldn't say it. There might be. We might be part of some big divine experiment, and we're going to find out, the meaning of our life was to whatever. But since we don't know that,
right,
by watching her, I realized the meaning of life is passion. And her passion, her life was about her love for me, her love for others, her love for chasing things, all this stuff. And if you think about it, what's the meaning of Mother Teresa's life? Well, it was her passion for helping the poor. What was the meaning of Edison's life? His passion for invention. Meaning of, let's say, Hitler's life. His passion for power. Racist destruction. And it's like, you can look at this and say, well, I can tell the meaning of their lives. Well, what's yours? And say, what is your passion? And if you think your life isn't meaningful enough, I'd say it's because you aren't engaging your passion enough.
Yes.
And of course, as a therapist, we spend a lot of time with people saying, I don't have any.
Right.
All this stuff. I say, well, what do you like to do? Oh, I don't like to do anything. And then you start talking, and then suddenly they'll get all excited about something.
A light bulb goes off.
But they don't even know it.
Right.
And it's like, do you realize you've spent the last half hour talking about animals?
Right.
Puppies.
Right.
You don't think that's a passion of yours?
Right.
Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it is. And so I really think from her, I grasped that in terms of this, as we sit around and try to think of what our lives mean, there's the old line, the unexamined life is not worth living. And my take is, then what was she? Because she never examined her life once, and it was very worth living. It's for us, because we have this big brain that I keep talking about here today.
We're so critical of ourselves.
Yeah. So we do need to examine, but then appreciate what you're examining and say, okay, do it.
Right.
Get out there and live that passion. And I'm of the belief that people are innately good, so I'm not that afraid that I'm saying this and people are saying, oh, good, I'll be Hitler. No, I don't think we have a lot of that.
Right. Inspire someone to tap into their passion.
Yeah. It's a good thing to do.
Right. I want you to inspire someone to tap into
I thought passion. I just did. Okay. I'll just say, I'll do just, what is it? Two questions. What do you most love to do? And what do you most care about? And those two things might be very separate. You might say, what I most love to do is whittling, and what I care about is world peace. And say, okay, can you find a way to bring those two together? Because in the meantime, either one is fine. They're great. Mm-hmm. But if you can ever find a way, and it might take a year, it might take 5 years, keep whittling and keep thinking about world peace, but there's going to be that day when you suddenly go, oh, I can do this and create some work of art that I can sell and donate that to, the United Nations. I don't know what it's going to be. But something where you say there is a mixture, there is a crossover. And it will be unstoppable. It becomes then a bottomless well. Because you can't, if you love doing it and you care about it,
yes,
then it's just you need to pay more attention to it to find the real passion there. I love talking about my dog.
Wonderful.
Sorry, there was some laughter across the room. I really do love talking about my dog.
Yes.
And I care a lot about helping people.
Yes,
and you can mix those two, and there's a passion.
Yes. On page 57 in your book, yes, you have an, I'm just going to take out a sentence that you wrote there that I loved.
Okay.
And it says, actors act, directors see. Take note of the most valuable images.
Well, that's a lovely story. Again, this was early 90s or mid 90s. Mm-hmm. And I had a friend visiting town, and of course, the first thing we always hear whenever anyone from out of town visits us in Los Angeles is, well, am I going to see the movie stars?
Right, Hollywood.
And the fact is probably not.
Right.
There are a lot of people who live here, and a few of them are really famous.
Right, right.
And this friend came. We went out and had breakfast at the farmer's market the first day, and Jodie Foster was sitting one table away. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of days later, we took puppy Sherelle out on a walk on the beach.
Yes.
And probably Palisades, or maybe it was into Malibu. Mm-hmm. But at some point, we were walking and talking about all sorts of stuff, and we walked past a sign that said no trespassing. You can't walk further here. And it was like, okay, yeah, sure. Send the helicopters to arrest us. What are you going to do? And so we just kept walking. Mm-hmm. But you could see over a mile ahead, I think, just beautiful coastline. And there were two guys walking towards us, one taller, one shorter, talking. And at this point, I was working in the entertainment business.
Yes.
And at some point, as the guys got closer, I realized, one of them, the taller one looks fine, but the shorter one is just dressed in what then was the uniform. Everybody who wanted to be a director felt they had to look like Steven Spielberg. And the baseball cap, scruffy beard, jacket, maybe it's kind of like this, and sort of hunched over, and glasses. I was like, I just said, this is so annoying. And, there's no way this person could have an original point of view, because they're sitting there trying to imitate this. As we got closer, it was Steven Spielberg, and the tall guy was Tom Hanks. I was like, I don't believe this. Right. You are here for 2 days, and you are seeing, how many people have won 2 Oscars? You've seen 3 of them.
Right, right.
And as they get closer, Spielberg's just listening, and Hanks is pontificating on and on about something. He's saying, this is going to be really important. People need to know about this, and people just don't know, and blah, 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 blah. And they walk on, and we're having our conversation. At some point, half an hour later or something, we turn around, and as we walk back, they're walking back. And, of course, as such big celebrities, they don't make eye contact with anybody. Right. But Spielberg sees Sherelle and looks over and just soaks her up and just smiles like, that is, wow, what a beautiful dog, whatever.
Yes.
And I think, that's it. Tom Hanks, and he has directed, but fundamentally he's an actor. He's
Right.
obviously a great
Right.
actor. He was acting. He was performing. He was doing his thing there.
Right.
And Spielberg, I'm going to pick up what the most beautiful thing is here. That's a good image there. That's a beautiful dog.
Yes.
And I'm convinced what they were talking about is what would 4 years later, 5 years later, be Saving Private Ryan. I think that was the thing.
Yes.
And so we were seeing kind of the genesis of it. But in the meantime, that's a really cute dog. You know? But the fact that Tom Hanks never looked, you know, he was doing his thing.
Beautiful.
And no, not knocking Tom Hanks.
Beautiful. Can you tell people where they can find your book?
Sure.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's available as an ebook on most websites.
Okay,
Most
Amazon?
dog selling. I'm sorry, book selling
Right,
websites.
right.
Not
That's okay.
dog selling websites.
That's okay.
But Barnes and Noble and a lot of smaller ones.
Yeah.
Amazon, you can get it as a Kindle, or as you can actually get the book itself,
Okay.
the actual physical book, which is
Okay.
better.
Yes.
And if you're in Los Angeles, you can get it at Book Soup in West Hollywood, Vroman's in Pasadena, or Chevalier's Books in Larchmont.
Okay. All right.
So any of those.
And what about your website?
Websites, yes.
Yes.
The publishing arm of the book is called Cavalleria Press. So the website for it is cavalleriapress.com. That's CAVALLERIA.
Yes.
And if anybody's wondering why in the world, what does that word mean? What is this crazy thing? It means chivalry or horsemanship.
Right.
And it's an Italian word, and same as chivalry, which also comes from it, or caballero in Spanish. It's the same thing of sort of gentlemanliness and horses.
Yes.
And it is I took it from the name of a very beautiful opera that I was an extra in when I was 10 years old, and called Cavalleria Rusticana. And I just, when I was trying to come up with a name here, I thought, okay, that, like Shirelle, it's got music, animal, and some meaning.
Yes.
And actually, I should throw in a story with the
Okay.
because I told
Go
you
ahead.
where I got her name from.
Yes.
Years later, I was working as a substitute teacher, and there was a
What were you teaching?
second grade.
Oh.
Yeah, in this case,
Nice.
elementary school, but in this
Right.
case it was second grade.
Love that age.
And they're great.
Yes,
They're just awesome.
yes.
And there was a little girl in the class that turned out whose name was Shirelle, but spelled differently. It was Shirel. And later I talked to her mother, and the deal is it's Hebrew for Song of God.
Wow.
Which is kind of, if you think of the story I was saying, I was like, whoa, I didn't think of it that way, but it's
Beautiful.
that's kind of awesome. And there's a couple of weird stories with this little girl who I would love it if she were watching this, because I have no idea what's happened to her. But I had found this out. The teacher knew me personally and called me up and said, "You're not going to believe this. I've got a kid in my class with this name." And so I, that morning, did a hangman thing where the kids have to guess a word, guess the letters
Yes.
for a word.
Yes.
And I said, it's my dog's name, and there's something very special about this name.
Right.
And when we finally got it, of course, she was blushing, and all the kids were giggling.
Yeah.
And they went out to recess. And when they came back, she was crying because some of the other children in the class were insulting her and calling her dog girl. And so, and of course, it was that they were jealous.
Right.
But then I explained that I just wanted to make it clear that this was the most beautiful word I'd ever heard, and I love my dog, and that's why I gave my dog the most beautiful name in the world.
Right.
That kind of fixed it.
Right.
Years later, many years later, Shirelle
Yes.
had cancer, and she beat it once, and that's a major story in the book,
Right.
of that she beat the cancer that was incurable.
Right.
But years later, it came back, and I took her to the dog hospital. There was this question of it was either or. It was like
Right.
either they're going to find something they can get out that day, or she's done.
Right.
And I had friends, doing whatever they did. Pray,
right.
sing a song, send vibes out there, just think about her, anything.
Yes.
I had a friend who's a yoga teacher who had everybody concentrate on her when they did the downward-facing dog position. It was just beautiful.
Right.
But it didn't go well.
Okay.
And we had to put her down. And I got in the car knowing I had to make the toughest phone calls I'd ever made. But first there were some messages, and a lot of it was just people calling and saying, "Hey, I'm thinking of you. Good luck. Hope all's well." And one of them was the teacher who had that class, and she said, "I'm hoping you get my message because I'm feeling very confident about it because Sherelle, you remember the student who's now in 4th or 5th grade, whatever she was in, came to my classroom today and brought me a cupcake."
Aww.
And she asked how I was doing and asked about the funny substitute I used to have who had the dog with her name.
Yes.
But the reason she brought the cupcake is because it was Sherelle's birthday.
Oh, wow.
And not even on our calendar.
Yes.
It was in the Jewish calendar,
okay.
the Hebrew calendar. So it wouldn't even be that same date, maybe ever again in her life. It was it was just this bizarre thing.
Right.
And so there was just something, I burst out crying, but it was like, but the idea of, in a way, it was this dog's birth into the next life, and just,
beautiful.
So there's, where did we start on this? I don't remember, but you asked me some question that got me going on the name.
No, you had a story. You started talking about the 2nd grader that you were teaching.
Oh, I know that, but I don't remember what your question was. I'm sorry,
That's
Tami.
okay. That's okay. I think we were talking about Actors Act, Directors See, and then you spun off into... Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even know how my brain works.
That's okay. That's
just
okay.
a real problem.
We've talked about quite a bit. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you coming out and lending your expertise and also sharing your book. And also, too, I'd like for you to talk to someone out there who may, have a love lost.
We all do.
Right.
And there are different ways of losing. There's the breakups, there's the divorces, there's the loss of a job. Loss of a job, which you can love, even if you don't love the job. It hurts when you lose that job.
Right.
And then, of course, losing someone like this, and with the job, that one's just tough, and you just got to find another.
Right.
Of course.
Right.
Except I will say, a good deal of the book deals with the question of losing not a job but a career, and what happens when all that goes.
Right.
And there's something of just trusting that things very likely will work out for the best. I will say, as I said, worked in the entertainment business and ended up with a lot of things going wrong with that. And I had to look for another job, switch lanes. Felt like I was switching entire freeways, the directions and everything.
Right.
And I went, eventually, a wonderful person recommended that I might make a good child psychologist and child therapist, and there was a good market there for male child therapists.
Right.
And I went to school in that, and found, like that, just that the bell went off.
Right.
I went to school for it and expecting, I was pretty bitter about it. I was a failure, and I was not going to enjoy this at all, but it would be a good way to make a living. And I loved every teacher. I loved every class. I loved every bit of it. I went into becoming an intern, and as you know, a lot of supervisors aren't that great. I loved every supervisor I had. It was ridiculous. It was just, I had a great time in this job.
Beautiful.
And I'm a happier person than I would have been staying in the entertainment business. There's no question in my mind. And there are things I miss about it, but hey, I get to do this.
Yes. Yes, and I'm glad that you do. I'm glad that you do. we're going to end the show today. I'm thankful that all of you tuned in. I'd like for you to tune in next week with us, same time, same channel. This is Tammy's Corner, and thank you so much, Douglas Green, for being in studio with us. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.